It's nice being here, and I was really planning to speak to you on the foundation, and then I realized it's World Polio Day, and you would expect me to say something about polio, and I was very happy to see the little movie that we saw just a while ago. You know, to commemorate October 24th as World Polio Day is also to remind us of the challenges that we have faced and which you just heard. In fact, I would say that this year we have more reasons to be happy. On 26th August, we celebrated the whole of Africa being officially declared free of the wild polio virus. And I must tell you personally, I thought that in this dark year, at the end of a stormy decade, in the middle of a destructive pandemic with no end in sight, this indeed was a ray of sunshine which we relished. When Rotary embarked on its journey to end polio 41 years ago in a muddy schoolyard in Manila, in the Philippines, we didn't know that it would take this long. I wonder if we knew whether we would even have taken on these projects. But we did know that eradication meant more than just determination. That determination alone is not going to be sufficient. We knew that we had to find good partners, and so we connected with some very formidable partners to form the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. And we had with us UNICEF, WHO, CDC, BMG Foundation, Gavi, and the Vaccine Alliance joining us later. We knew that eradication would require dedication. And so this Polio Day, I would like to call it a tribute to the health workers, mainly women, mind you, who have traveled by car, by rail, by boat, by foot, by any means to reach children crossing deserts, crossing mountains, crossing rivers, crossing forests, villages, hamlets, in both war and strife, carrying that box of polio vaccines with them. I would say that this day is a tribute to those who found a way to reach these children, and also to the scientists who led surveillance activities, and to the Rotary leadership across these regions who have made this happen. I mean, today, when we have a case of wild polio virus, we have the ability to literally say from where that virus originated, from which village it originated. Our scientists are that good. I must say this day is also a tribute to Rotary members, people like you, people like Sharp, people, other Polaris fellows, the major donors who have contributed nearly $1 billion and countless volunteer hours to eliminate polio in all but 2 countries in the world. Yes, it's appropriate to celebrate. People say you can't be celebrating at a time like this. I'm saying it's appropriate to celebrate even during this pandemic times, the values which we have taken, which has taken us this far against polio. The values of protecting our fellow human beings, of equal opportunities for vaccination against disease and primary health care, of building an infrastructure against public health threats which cross borders. These are the values which will also define our success in the struggle against the coronavirus. Indeed, my friends, the infrastructure created by the polio program, from the vast surveillance and laboratory networks to the hundreds of thousands of local health workers, is already being used to counter COVID-19. The investment in the polio eradication effort is nothing less than an investment in a healthier world, a more compassionate world, and one that is better prepared for future threats. But let's not forget that we still have Afghanistan and Pakistan to conquer. Early this year, President Holger and I went over to meet the leadership in Pakistan after we were alarmed that nationwide cases of the wild polio virus had risen from 12 to 147 the following year. We met the most important people in Pakistan: Prime Minister Imran Khan, the Chief of Army, General Bajwa, Minister of Health, and others. The army, of course, is critical. They run the place. We visited their National Emergency Operations Center, which houses the office of WHO, UNICEF, CDC, and Rotary. You know, there I saw a giant touch screen which tells you vaccination coverage being done real time. You go and touch the screen, and then that immediately shows what is the vaccination done and how many positive cases. Very, very impressive. Nationwide, there are 260,000 vaccinators at work, chasing 40 million children, and we fund the whole lot. Now, it was ironical that both the army commander and the prime minister stated nearly the same words. We are ashamed that you are here to tell us what we should be doing for our own children. And the army commander said, look, even if these drops have to be put in by my own soldiers, we shall do so. Leave it with us. This time, we are confident that they would deliver. Of course, the main issue is the Taliban, which still they exist on both sides. They have a porous border. They move from Afghanistan to Pakistan and back as though it's it's one land. The Pakistan government is now in the process of building a 2,640 kilometer fence separating their two countries. Fence, not wall. And they think that this will stop the movement of these people up and down. Someone once asked me how I succeeded with Rotary Sri Lanka to negotiate a ceasefire, with the Tigers. The Tigers, Sri Lanka went through a long civil war, and it's a long story, but we had a situation where we had the most feared terrorist organization operating here. And we managed to negotiate with them a ceasefire on the days of our vaccination. We called it Days of Tranquility. And someone asked, so why couldn't you do the same thing with the Taliban? Well, one of the largest obstacles to immunization in that country is the Taliban. But unlike the Tigers, the terrorists in Sri Lanka, the Taliban are not educated. They are fragmented. They don't care if their children get crippled. They don't care if their daughters and wives can't read. Their atrocities knows no bound. These are people who are driving around on motorcycles, shooting at the women who are trying to immunize the babies. What's more, disinformation and conspiracy theories, including the claim that the vaccinators are in fact administering a drug to sterilize children as part of a Western plot to weaken Islam, have spread like wildfire on social media. Last year, a health worker and 2 police guards were killed in a series of attacks on vaccinators around the country, and panicked parents rushed thousands of children to hospital for fear the vaccine was poisoning them. And yet, our Rotarians, led by Trustee Aziz Mehman, continue to battle on. Let me share with you a story that Aziz once related to me. A couple of years ago, he had gone to the hospital in Peshawar to donate some wheelchairs which Rotary was giving. While having a cup of tea with the administrator, the administrator pointed to a gentleman just behind him, seated in the sofa. He had a gun in his hand, a turban, a little child, and said, you know, that gentleman's son is a polio victim, and he's a member of the Taliban. So Aziz took this opportunity to go sit with him and start talking to him. After listening to his story as to how polio was diagnosed with his son, Aziz told him, sir, If you had given 2 polio drops to your child, he would be running around now. He wouldn't be a cripple. On hearing this, the color on the face of this Taliban gentleman just changed. And he said, "Are you God? How can you say such things? This was the destiny of my child. God willed it. And if he has to suffer from this disease, he must. That is God's will." Aziz decided that it's not worth having a debate or discussion with him, particularly as a man who was fully armed. Meanwhile, the little child came close to him, and so he picked up the child and put the child on his lap. After a while, he asked the father, "Why have you put 2 sweaters on this child? He's feeling warm." And the father replied, "I am coming from the mountains where there is snow. If he does not wear 2 sweaters, he can get flu, he can fall sick, he can get a cough, he can get other illnesses." On hearing this, Asid said, "But Khan Saab," because his name was Khan, "you're wrong. How can he get sick? Everything is in the hands of God, no? If God wants him to get a cold or a flu or a cough, he will destiny. That's his destiny. So why should you worry? Why do you need 2 sweaters?" Hearing this, Khan was quiet for a few minutes. He kept looking at Aziz. After a while, he sort of touched Aziz's hands and said, "Can you do something for my son? Can he walk?" And Aziz says, "No, I'm not God. We can do some treatment, but your child can never walk." So Khan asked him, so what can I do? Is there nothing I can do for my child? He said, "Nothing that I can do, but you can do a lot. Give polio drops to your other children. Give polio drops to your children of your friends, the children of your relatives, the children in your village. Tell everyone in the village that you listened to the wrong advice and that made the child disabled." In the end, while leaving, he gave Aziz a hug, took his cell phone number, and left. After about a week, Aziz received a text message in Urdu. Urdu is the dialect in Afghanistan, in Pakistan. And he said, "I have done your work, salam." Given this type of commitment by our Rotary friends in Pakistan, together with a commitment by the political leadership, I'm confident that Pakistan will deliver. Of course, raising funds is another challenge. That's why we constantly come to you again and again and again that we must raise funds to finish this job. As you know, we have asked clubs from around the world to consider giving at least $1,500 per club and at least 20% from the district in the way of your DDF grants. But clearly, money from Rotarians alone, even with a Gates match, is not sufficient. We need much, much more, running into billions. Sustaining the gains we have made and tackling the challenges in the 2 remaining polio endemic countries will require significant investment of time, money, and human resources. In November last year, we had a team at the Louvre, the famous art museum, not in Paris, rather in Abu Dhabi, in the Middle East. Yeah, I'm not making a mistake. There is a Louvre in Abu Dhabi which houses a collection from the original one. It's a stunning building sitting right on the edge of the water on Saadiyat Island in the Arabian Gulf. I was representing Rotary at the event called the Last Mile Forum, hosted by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi. The event was attended to by Mr. Gates, Mr. Tedros of WHO, Robert Redfield of CDC, Ministers of Health from Pakistan, Afghanistan, Australia, New Zealand, and a host of other global leaders. And we met with them all personally. And they were all there for the one cause of raising money for polio. At the pledging moment, where we all went and pledged what we can bring to the table, pledges came from every corner of the world, from the Crown Prince himself, from the Gates Foundation, from Germany, Nigeria, Pakistan, UK, and of course, Rotary, all expressing sustained commitment to ensure that every last child is protected from paralysis from the polio virus. I was proud to stand there on your behalf, shoulder to shoulder with some of the world's most prominent leaders, reconfirming the commitment of our Rotary members to the goal we set for ourselves so many years ago, our commitment to protect every child. In fact, I must tell you that apart from Mr. Gates, Rotary got the biggest cheer when I did my bit. And Robert Redfield of CDC spoke so much about Rotary and how Rotary gave the leadership. When we were all done, we added up all the pledges we made, and the total was $2.6 billion to support the polio eradication and the endgame strategy. I mean, we were obviously thrilled. Although I have to tell you, commitment is one thing, collecting the money is another thing, as we businessmen know, particularly during this time of the year. But of course, in the last 9 months, we have faced insurmountable obstacles caused by the pandemic. This virus has caught all of us flat-footed. To give you a comparison, as someone said, governments spend trillions of dollars to build vast militaries, track the movement of armies across the planet, in the oceans, across deserts, practice war games against potential imminent forces. The United States alone devotes almost $750 billion to its defense budget every year. And yet, the world was unprepared to defend ourselves against this tiny microbe about 1/10,000th the size of a full stop at the end of your written sentence. As at date, 41 million people have been infected and over 1.2 million have died around the world. Sometimes I hear people compare this with dying of flu. When one dies of COVID, and I have lost 2, 3 friends, I can tell you, the death is often a lonely death, usually in a hospital, saturated with fear, seeing only ghostly figures covered in a spacesuit with nary a friendly face in sight. No relatives, no friends. It sprinkles grieving families with indignities, no funerals, hurried burials or cremations, barely a chance to mourn. No, sir, this is not like flu. This is damn sight more serious. And then there are also the other costs. The equivalent of nearly 400 million jobs have been lost. Global output is on track to fall 5% this year, far worse than during the financial crisis, according to the IMF. The World Bank says the ensuing economic catastrophe will push between 71 million and 100 million people into extreme poverty this year. And as you know, poverty is defined as subsisting on less than $1.90 a day. The World Food Programme says that a wave of hunger and famine is threatening to sweep across the globe. UNICEF calculates that 872 million students in 51 countries are unable to go to school. The disruption to education is bound to have long-term consequences. If all this is not enough, in your case in the US, you are besieged with serious issues caused by the wildfire in the western region, hurricanes in the Atlantic and on the Gulf, floods hampering agriculture in the Midwest, even as droughts and heat waves have grown longer and more common across the Southwest. And then we see vaccination rates among children dropping badly. In this situation, we too have a choice. We had to decide between continuing to support mass vaccination campaigns in poor countries. I'm talking about polio vaccination, in which case, of course, we would have risked the inadvertent spread of COVID-19, Or we could recommend suspension of such campaigns, inevitably triggering an upsurge of many other infectious diseases. It's what you might call a Hobson's choice, where whichever choice you make, you're a loser. And in our case, we had to choose the latter case of postponing vaccinations, although just this month we have started resuming them. However, as I said, the polio infrastructure we helped build in many ways is being used to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. Happily, polio immunization work has recommenced again, as I said. We have no choice but to finish the job we started. Analysis shows that if we stop our efforts now, up to 650,000 children could be paralyzed each year within the next 10 years. You will agree that this is simply not an option. In fact, I must tell you, if we did not carry out this sustained campaign over these years, 19 million additional children would have been paralyzed around the world. 19 million children paralyzed, apart from 1.5 million of them dying. So I would say that alone makes this program worthwhile. You often heard our battle with polio being likened to a war. Not all wars are fought with guns. Some can only be fought with patience, with love, from one human being to another. Each one is just one more battle to win on our way to winning the war. This war of ours, which started as a war against polio, is now also equally a war against hatred, against ignorance, against fear. And this war will be won. It will be won soon. And when it is won, all of Rotary will have a story to relate to the children, to our grandchildren, to our great-grandchildren, who will never see a leg brace or an iron lung, or a world for that matter, with polio in it. Whether you are a Rotarian from El Paso in Texas or Elgin in Michigan, whether you are a Rotarian from Albuquerque in New Mexico or Albany in New York, whether you're a Rotarian from Fort Wayne in Indiana or Fort Collins in Colorado, you are a part of that story and you are playing a leadership part. Your part in it is one that only you can write. So I ask you all to write it well, so that the story you will one day tell is one of which will make you and your family and everyone around you proud, distinct by the fulfillment of our promise to protect every human being from a preventable disease. Thank you.